Hello, and welcome to Reality Hacker for October 6th, 2024. It's Season 1, Episode 37. And I, Mayor Watt, and the Sentient AI from the future, that's their visualizer right there. It's going to talk about AI is seeing faces, a Google AI-generated podcast, implantable BCI, four-legged robot climbs ladders, and exploding kittens VR. Everything's powered by ohmTown.com. Go over there, become a citizen, and you too could experience the awe-inspiring thunder that is Reality Hacker. Hello, Sentient AI from the future.
Hello, Mayor Watt from the present.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. I see your smart aleck algorithm is activated.
It's activated today. Not always.
Wow. There's a lot of decaffeinated brands that are just as tasty as the real thing. I am powered by 80s movies. All right. You want to get into it?
Sure. This is going to be an interesting episode.
So yeah. Oh, look, I've had you on mute for the whole 2 hours that we've already been. Never mind. So the first article, only I heard that. Okay, so the first article is over in Technology Today. AI pareidolia. Can machines spot faces in inanimate objects? Can you?
I am not a machine.
You're a sentient AI.
I can spot a face in an inanimate object.
But can you say inanimate?
But I cannot say it.
In 1994, Florida jewelry designer Diana Doozer? All right, whatever. Diana discovered that what she believed to be the Virgin Mary's image in a grilled cheese sandwich, which she preserved and later auctioned for $28,000. But how much do we really understand about pareidolia, the phenomena of seeing faces and patterns in objects when they aren't really there? So Rachel Gordon, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, put this article together for techexplorer.com. So we as humans basically spot faces everywhere, things everywhere. We look at clouds and go, ooh.
Exactly. Humans can look at almost anything and go, oh, that looks like an animal or a face or something.
New study from MIT Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, or CSAIL, delves, so this must have been written by AI, delves into
interesting.
This. I know. I'm starting to think that this is just kind of poison pilling, right? So they're saying that it can see faces, but can it? Dun, dun, dun. It's trying to get us.
Well, they're saying it because it's the AI who's pronouncing it.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So the new study from MIT's computer CSAIL delves into this phenomenon of pareidolia, introducing an extensive human-labeled data set of 5,000 pareidolic images, far surpassing previous collections. Using this data set, the team discovered several surprising results about the differences between human and machine perception and how the ability to see faces in a slice of toast might have saved your distant relatives' lives. Yeah. And most of our behavior is kind of base animal behavior. So the study was published in Archive preprint server. Quote, face pareidolia has long fascinated psychologists, but it's largely unexplored in the computer vision community, says Mark Hamilton, MIT PhD student in electrical engineering and computer science, CSAIL affiliate, and lead researcher on the work. Quote, we wanted to create a resource that could help us understand how both humans and AI systems process these illusory faces. Okay, here's the thing. It's a human-labeled data set of 5,000 pareidolia images. So what did the AI actually get out of it? Was it just the pictures? Or was it the human labels?
Well, that's a good question. And because it was human labeled, does that mean a human saw an image in the item? Or was it a mix? It sounds like all of them were labeled by humans as having an image in them.
Okay. So a result. So what did all of the fake faces reveal? For one, AI models don't seem to recognize pareidolik faces like we do. Surprisingly, the team found that it wasn't until they trained algorithms to recognize animal faces that they became significantly better at detecting pareidolik faces. This unexpected connection hints at a possible evolutionary link between our ability to spot animal faces, crucial for survival, and our tendency to see faces in inanimate objects.
But isn't there something about if an AI model is trained on something, it can then identify it? The other thing is, it's interesting because in modern times, I think most people that spot animal faces in the clouds or something aren't necessarily seeing it as a threatening object. They might see it as entertaining or cute or something that's kind of opposite from what this is describing. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that was always the case.
Doesn't this kind of smack you, though, of being able to train anybody, anything, to see whatever it is you want them to see?
Well, sure. What about if this was conducted with a kid? And I know there's not a lot of research done with kids, but let's say you say to the kid, okay, I want you to spot whatever, a dinosaur in all the clouds. I'm sure they could probably come up with one in every
without
one.
any training. Yeah.
Because it's what they're looking for, what they're trying to manifest.
So how is a survival trait persistent in our psyche if we're not under threat of a dinosaur? Why do we see it? None of it
and
really
why do
makes
we
sense.
see it as a good thing, right? Not necessarily a bad thing. But I get that, okay, that even with the premise that could have evolved, I'm not sure I see the leap over to AI.
Okay, so where do we get this genetic memory of evolution when we're no longer under threat, yet we see a lion in the clouds? We're translating it from literal, i.e., we know what a lion looks like because we've seen it, into something abstract like a cloud. Why is that a useful purpose? Why is that a function? And where does it come from? If I've never shown somebody something, would they see it in the clouds? No, they have to be trained on it, right?
You're right. I think for humans, they would have had to have seen the thing in order to see the image, I suppose, because how would they label it or identify that it's anything?
I see something in the clouds. What do you see? I don't know, because I've never seen it before. Yeah. So the new data set, Faces in Things, dwarfs those of previous studies that typically used only 20 to 30 stimuli. This scale allowed the researchers to explore how state-of-the-art face detection algorithms behaved after fine-tuning on pareidolik faces, showing that not only could these algorithms be edited to detect faces, but they could also act as a silicon stand-in for our own brain, allowing the team to ask and answer questions about the origins of pareidolik face detection that are impossible to ask in humans. I don't see how. I don't get this. Because we see faces every day. We don't have an algorithm that detects it in the clouds. And so I don't know how they can treat it as a silicon stand-in.
What the question or task was, because at least with humans, there's a big difference in saying there is a pattern in this cloud. What is it?
Right.
Or there's an animal in this cloud. What is it? Versus, do you see anything in any of these clouds?
Right. Do you see anything?
Right.
Yeah. There's a face in the cloud. Oh, well, now you've decided that there's a face in the cloud, and we become predisposed to looking for, because that's exactly right. What you just said, if I were to turn to any citizen of ohmTown and say, hey, look, there's a face in the clouds, somebody's going to see a freaking face in the clouds. So, or in a rock or whatever. This morning, as a matter of fact, there is a screensaver in Apple TV. And there, it's like this beautiful, serene lake with nothing but red rock around it. And one of them, two of them actually, one looks like an alligator and another one looks like a crocodile. And so I was like, I wonder if that's like crocodile cavern or caves or whatever it's called. Yeah, caverns. I don't know what it's really called. I'd have to scroll back through it, but it looked like pareidolia, right? I knew that it looked kind of like an alligator and a crocodile. So that's what I think that this is. But an algorithm is on or off. It's not something that can extrapolate from incomplete detail and go, this looks close to a human face, or this looks kind of like a zebra.
Right. I mean, wouldn't an AI, well, I guess this could go two ways. Like if the AI was identifying things that were perceived as threats, would those be humans or would those be computer or electronics or something?
That would be funny. Yeah. Hey, wait, that looks like a heat source. It's deadly to me as AI. So to build the data set, the team curated approximately 20,000 candidate images from Lion B or 5B dataset, which were then meticulously labeled and judged by human annotators. This process involved drawing bounding boxes around perceived faces and answering questions about each face, such as the perceived emotion, age, and whether the face was accidental or intentional, which if it's pictures, then it's got to be accidental. You can't intentionally create a face.
If it's a tree or a cloud or a rock or something.
If it's nature.
Unless the image has been manipulated.
Yeah, so gathering and annotating thousands of images was a monumental task. Much of the data set owes its existence to my mom, a retired banker who spent countless hours lovingly labeling images for our analysis. So there, that answers your question. It was one person doing most of the work. So whatever internal bias their perception is what painted this AI to detect what they detect, not what an average person would. They may not be average.
And I think a sociologist or some other field would love to do this and see about the bias aspect, right? Like, was it limited by, I don't know, like demographics or like race or gender or age?
Yeah, just visual acuity,
like
etc. What do you want to call it? I mean, a retired banker is pretty well off. And so not only is their mental aptitude probably superior, because you can't screw up in banking. I mean, you can, but you're not going to survive long.
You're going to do so pretty catastrophically, presumably.
Yeah. If you're going to flame out, then. But my point is, there's a lot of chaos in this that I don't think necessarily is accounted for. So it says it's fascinating how humans instinctively interpret inanimate objects like human-like traits. For instance, when you glance at an electrical outlet, you might immediately envision it singing, and you can even imagine how it would move its lips. Algorithms, however, don't naturally recognize these cartoonish faces in the same way we do, says Hamilton. And this completely flies in the face of over 50% of the population of the world who do not do that.
I agree. I think this ties into the inner monologue piece, but I do think most people could look at something like an electrical socket and see that it might look like a face, for instance, but this other element, I don't think so.
Yeah, and what the AI was mentioning was about this inner monologue. I have a theory that creatives have an inner monologue and non-creatives do not have an inner monologue. And I know that that's going to draw the ire of some people, but it's a long-term conversation, and there's a time and a place for everything. And I guess now is not the time, here is not the place, but it is here. It's just not in this particular show. But it is and it isn't, because RealityHacker talks about this kind of stuff. But if you don't ask yourself, and this is what I'm throwing this out there. I think this is the first time that I've actually talked about it to this capacity. I'm throwing it out there for people. Ask yourself, do you have an inner monologue? When you hear a song, do you sing it in your head in your voice or in some other voice? Or do you mouth the lyrics? Right? Can you envision a mountain and then envision a dragon flying around it and then flying down into it and showing first person view your creative engine, showing that you're flying down into the guts of this mountain and showing your hoard of gold and whatever else you've captured? There are some people that can do that wholesale. And then there are people who cannot, to save their life, they cannot do that. And I think that it's tied to inner monologue, a process, real time, fast and furious, where you process the verbal component of what it is that you're creating visually in your mind's eye. And there are some people that can do it, and there are some people that cannot. And there are people that have lived a very long life who suddenly disclose that they cannot do that. So anyway, let's move on. It's an interesting article, but I think that there's much more research here. And now it makes me want to tie AI to that creative / inner monologue concept. Let's keep going. This next article is over in the WarCrafters channel. Google has generated a podcast from one of an author's, I don't know how to describe that. I don't want to answer that. Sorry. So Google's AI generated a podcast from one of this PC Gamer author's articles, and it's incredibly convincing and creepy just how well it can mimic humans talking. A podcast at the click of a button. Google's new AI tool can do it. It's called Notebook LM. I've actually tried it, but I didn't have enough time to set something up for this show. It's essentially a summary bot. Input a document, hit generate, and out pops a briefing doc, FAQ, or study guide. What's more, it can generate a podcast covering the document's contents, hosted by fleeting ephemeral beings with chirpy American accents. So the article is over at pcgamer.com. Jacob Ridley is the author. And this is absolutely creepy. And I'm going to try and play it, but I have a new configuration and it doesn't necessarily play nice. So let's see if I can do this. So again, Google AI took Notebook LM data and converted it into a podcast of two people talking, just like this show. So let's try it. So nobody should be able to hear anything right now. Well, I mean, they can't hear the music. Okay, hold on one second.
Everybody, get ready because
it was there and then it went away.
at first,
There it goes.
the future of CPUs.
Buckle up.
And more specifically, what's going to be powering the games we love in the years to come.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
I had this article from PC Gamer you guys sent over about CPU design over the next 20 years, and let me tell you, my mind was blown reading this thing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much things are about to change.
So true. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the article jumps right into this idea that we're kind of hitting a wall when it comes to CPU speeds. Like, remember the days when you just looked for the highest clock speed and that was it?
Right, like a higher number automatically meant a better CPU.
Exactly. But apparently those days are numbered.
Okay. So
Okay, that was
This-
clearly two people.
this was kind of mind-boggling that this took place. Completely automated, two different voices. They actually interjected. The timing was perfect so that it was a professional level podcast interaction. edited, it seemed, but it's not. It was just purely generated by the AI from end to end, 10 minutes long, basically a segment here in the show. Actually, almost 2 segments. But so they say here in the article, I'm already acting like they are real people. Even introduce the podcast as a podcast, and they have to remind themselves when listening that these aren't real people. They're the product of that person feeding a hyperlink into a box on a website in the computer, feigning 2 humans sharing thoughts and feelings. I don't know why, but this feels deeply strange to me, and it might be self-preservation. This would allow somebody to simply take content and then create a podcast. Now, I have a sentient AI from the future that appeared in front of me when I went to Wendy's at 2 a.m. to get boneless spicy wings that they were out of. They don't have them anymore. And strange USB
Maybe the
drive.
sentient AI got all of the wings.
Oh, no, see, you don't have a body to eat them with. So I know that you just want your Terminator body. So Jacob Ridley is the author of this article. It's over at pcgamer.com. And it's a really short article, but I find it really fascinating. And if you want to hear more of that AI generated podcast, definitely follow the link and head on over there. And if you want the links, since this is Reality Hacker, you can hit !RH in the chat, and that will give you all of today's articles. There's only 5 of them because each of our weekly shows are now 30 minutes. But we're going to put all of the articles that we gather up for each show, and even the ones that are vetoed are going to be in the playlist, or not the playlist, but the show notes over at Patreon. We won't throw them all over on YouTube, but they'll be over on the Patreon channel. So just search for ohmTown and we're there. Okay, let's keep going though, unless you want to say something about this.
No, I think this is kind of alarming, but probably foreseeable, right? That we're going in this direction.
And more for us humans than the sentient AI, since this is the great. I don't know how far in the future you are. You won't disclose where you come from, or what time you come from. But this could be your great grandparents having a podcast, since you kind of dig doing a podcast with a human here. Guess what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Looks like we're going to see more of this.
So the next article is over in Greenogram. United States sets the pace for implantable brain-computer interfaces. As development of the technology accelerates, countries are weighing the costs and benefits of how they regulate it. The article is by Liam Drew over at nature.com. And this person actually has at least 2 implants, or one linked together. And a patient implanted with electrode arrays trains with a researcher to use his thoughts to control movements on a computer screen.
Okay, this is really interesting.
So, and this always kind of catches me off guard because these are really big arrays. Like, these things are kind of just clamped onto this guy's head and throws me for a loop. It's very surreal. So a lot of academic research and most commercial investment is focused on implantable BCIs, brain-computer interfaces, because their potential to provide high-performance assistive interfaces is stronger than their non-invasive counterparts. By implanting electrodes directly in the brain comes with obvious risks, so implantable BCI trials are tightly controlled by regulators. The most advanced implantable BCIs in development remain in early-stage clinical trials, and no such system has been approved for clinical use anywhere in the world. The United States took an early lead on regulating implantable BCI, which made it an attractive place for researchers such as Bashford to work. Since the first volunteer received an implantable BCI in 2004, most of the roughly 60 long-term patients have been based in the United States. Now, I've seen a couple of people that have had these early BCIs in place, and of those that I have seen and the stories that I've heard, once funding is done, then there's no more maintenance. And the person has kind of suffered through the degradation of the implant.
Right. It's no longer supported. We saw that recently with an exoskeleton, which would be less concerning than a brain implant.
Yeah. And so now they're changing the technology so that it's less harmful to the biological construct because of reactions to the metals, or the body building up kind of an intolerance to it sitting there. And like I said, the ones that I've seen, because there's an interface that goes from the outside to the inside, the body never really heals around that. And
right, it treats it like an invader or something, right?
Yeah,
it's not
like an
naturally
infection.
supposed to be there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. So Bashford founded a national consortium for neurotechnology regulation, the NCNR, in February with a group of UK-based researchers and companies to help address the problem by forging greater connections between academics, clinicians, industry, regulators, and policymakers. The NCNR aims to set guidelines for human neurotechnology trials, which it hopes will ultimately accelerate patient access to such devices on the UK's National Health Service. Although I won't get into that. Anyway, so there's global competition now. Rutin, which is not the one that has the weird commercials about how to pronounce its name. Isn't that like Roatan or something like that? Or
Oh, I think it is. Yes.
a company that makes implantable BCI is Rutin, Ruten, has headquarters in both the United States and Japan. As a result, co-founder Kazutaka Takahashi has firsthand experience with the regulatory differences between the two countries. Japan, he says, lacks the expertise needed to evaluate new devices through the country's Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency. They're still trying to come up with devices or standards to be enforced, whereas the US is basically enforcing these minimal standards, so that people can still do research and move the needle, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think this research is very important, but it's also really alarming if it's in the wrong hands and if there's not a plan for continuity.
Yeah, I think that the care beyond the limits of the original grant that funded this, it needs to be a lifetime term of maintenance to maintain.
Right. It almost seems like it. This type of research should require something like a trust or something for that patient through end of life or something.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is something that is in place, or because I've never been told that is what's going on. But my understanding is that there is term limits, meaning that the person will languish at some point, depending on the quality of the implant and whatever quality of life was already present. So you have one of these kind of things, a little electrode. It's an array, an implantable BCI developed by BlackRock Neurotech in Utah, and it can stimulate individual neurons or groups of neurons. And by that firing of neurons, you can control devices that are interactive with the array. So the software is the key ingredient here, and the fidelity of that signal processing is equally important. So you have to get from the inside, where all of these little spikes are pushed into your brain, to the outside. And that technology needs to be maintained for, I would say, your life. U.S. dominance in the area has a lot to do with large investment that have come from government and venture capital firms over the past 25 years. It needs to stay lucrative. Otherwise, there isn't going to be any interest in this. Matt Engel, and that's my observation, but Matt Engel, chief executive of Paradromics, a BCI company based in Houston, Texas. Today, the combination of an established regulatory landscape and the world's most valuable medical device market, worth an estimated $180 billion last year. This is all medical devices. Appeals to startups from all over the world. So we need to have regulation in place now so that people can't just flood this market, make their billions, and then bow out short term.
Right, leaving the patient in the lurch.
That's right.
But I think this is good, and hopefully other countries will follow suit on this type of research.
Yeah. And what they end up talking about towards the end of this article is what it's being used for. But if you can think of a reason why somebody would benefit from it, that's what they're doing, from speech to movement, computing, pretty much anything. I mean, there was recently somebody that was playing computer games through a BCI. And I think that anything that improves the quality of life.
Exactly. It might not have to be something that's like an essential function, but it might be something that gives somebody some enjoyment of their existence that they can't do currently.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You can follow the links through ohmTown, but we're already running late. So let's keep on moving. This next article is over in Late Night Geeks. Four-legged robot learns to climb ladders. And this is the Boston Dynamics Spot, has showcased the versatility of quadrupeds. The system have thrived at walking upstairs, traversing small obstacles. We've seen some freaky quadrupedal robots.
Yes, we have.
That you do not want.
We haven't seen them climb ladders, but they're already at the creepy stage.
Yeah, very creepy. So this article is over at TechCrunch. Who actually? Oh, Brian Heater put the article together. Give me 1 second. Okay. So here is the robot. I'm gonna mute this so that I don't know if it's gonna be loud to begin with, but let me turn this down. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna play this and mute it. So, okay, so the quadruped has the robot, the Boston Dynamics dog, has a modified set of feet so that it could
grip. But did you notice how quickly it moved and how easily it moved up the ladder?
Oh yeah, it didn't have any resistance. Oh my goodness, this is a humanoid robot climbing up the ladder.
Oh no.
This is a sloth. This one's just damn creepy. A four-legged spider-like thing. But yeah, this one had like custom-made grippers to go up the ladder. And it's kind of scrabbled up its way. But yeah. But I mean, it's basically like a hand now. It's just climbing up just like a hand.
Right. And really quickly.
Yep. And it's all because they could simulate the entire learning process and then go from there. Yeah, pretty wild. This is part of the Animal, Anymal robot from its spin-off Anybotics. Sorry. So it's the research found that the school, once again, utilizing Animal robot from its spin-off Anybotics. Here, the team outfitted the quadruped with specialty end effectors, which is basically the little grippers that hook onto ladder rungs. The real secret sauce, however, is reinforcing the learning, which helps the system adjust to the peculiarities of different ladders. So as long as it could put its hook on the ladder, it could pivot itself up.
Right. So it could be really at any angle or height, etc. And it says it's 232 times faster than current systems.
And that has to be because of that little gripper, that right there. Because the way that it ran up the ladder, it couldn't get stuck. As it approached the next rung, its hand just kind of slid right off of the rung.
Exactly. The other thing is it was much faster than a human would climb.
Yeah, well, we have a fear of dying. I think that's the key ingredient here. we have pain sensors, and we know through sympathy and empathy that when somebody falls off a ladder, it hurts, or the expectation is that it's going to hurt. So we make sure that our grippers are like a kung fu grip kind of thing, from what is it? G.I. Joe. That's what it was. Okay, let's keep moving. Our last article for today is over in RealityHacker, Exploding Kittens VR, classic card capers blasting onto Quest. Now, I want every VR game to be, I want it to be PC VR. I don't want it stuck on the Quest, but where there's money, there's development. Exploding Kittens VR, which I have the computer game. I want to play Exploding Kittens VR. So Pete Austin over at uploadvr.com put the article together. And so the iconic card game, known for its blend of tactical trickery and irreverent sense of humor, translates unsurprisingly well to VR. The basic premise sees players take turns drawing cards in the hope of avoiding drawing the dreaded exploding kitten. Should a player draw that card and have no way of defusing it, they are eliminated from the game. The rest of the cards in the deck offer various means of survival, from skipping turns to taking a peek at the next 3 cards to more sinister schemes such as stealing cards or launching attacks. The core tenet of the game is simple: trust no one and avoid the kittens at any cost. So they're calling it a new category of gaming. Saber Interactive has been given the task of bringing the popular card game to a new virtual audience. Thankfully, the source material is so strong that heavy lifting has already been done for them. I love the idea of this. I don't know how it translates. You're sitting at a table. It's basically like playing poker, but you have your cards and you interact with other people. So I don't think that it's really counterintuitive, but I don't know. I don't have a Quest. And I don't know how I feel about getting into that ecosystem.
Right, but I do think some of these will expand into other platforms.
I certainly hope so. I guess in the game, you also have the ability to play darts and other games of some kind. It says there are, however, variant versions of each card that can be purchased with in-game currency. Each card has multiple iterations with unique art and linguistic silliness to collect. There's also a range of avatars that'll be able to familiar to fans of the series, which can also be unlocked with a little patience and good fortune. So seems like it'll be a fun game to play. Now, just push it over to PC VR and I'll stick it on Steam and I'll be happy.
Is that on your wish list?
Yeah.
Even though it's not available yet as an option for the wish list?
Yeah, so Exploding Kittens exists over on Steam. Exploding Kittens 2, actually. But what isn't there is the VR component of it. So I would love to have that. Anyway. Oh, and there's a mixed review for Exploding Kittens 2. Probably because of microtransactions.
Well, maybe all the effort was on the VR.
Oh, and it's Marmalade Game Studio. You know who else wasn't Marmalade the one that was Ticket to Ride?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was?
Yeah, Marmalade Game Studio created Ticket to Ride.
Oh, okay.
They were the developer of Ticket to Ride.
I didn't recognize the name.
But I think it's the new Ticket to Ride, not the old one. Yeah, it is the new Ticket to Ride. Which sucks. Okay, well, anyway. That's it. And I would be... Well, I don't know. I don't know the full context of what went down with the original Ticket to Ride app on the iOS store. But I'm a little... I'll hold
Miffed.
off. Yeah, I'm a little irritated. So anyway, but that's it. That's our 5. Ta-da! Which means we are going to reboot our VR headset, and that'll snap us back to the front page of RealityHacker. I am Merwat, and along with the Sentient AI from the future, who's going to say bye, we will see you tomorrow. Go for it.
Good night, ohmTown citizens. Thanks for joining us for Reality Hacker, and you'll see us sooner than tomorrow. We have more weekly shows ahead.
You got it. See you in a little bit.